a lot of chapter 2 is to do with collecting data and graphing it. So what kind of data are we looking at? Okay, have a look at this. Suppose you're asked to give you a physical description of yourself. There are categories that can describe you, like your gender, ethnicity and age. Okay? Now each of these categories represents a kind of distinct variable. Now have a look at the definition of the variable here. It's usually represented by a letter, usually X, okay? And it's a quantity that may change or vary from one instance to another. Now, I know it's like just reading at the moment, but have a look at what we just said about these categories of variables. Gender. Gender has two specific variables, in other words, male or female, okay? Ethnicity might have, Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, Asian, Native American. So there's the different values for ethnicity. Now your age, this is kind of like a classic variable, okay? It's to do with numbers, all right? And it could vary anything from 0 to 110. Now if we're actually down here from 17 to 110, okay? I guess we're at school here, okay? We're at college, we're 17 years old, okay? So if somebody's asking you a question, how old am I? It may be that you're 17, maybe that you're 35, okay? These are variables, you see. Everything changes. 17, 18, 19, 20, it varies, okay? So your age is a variable. Okay, now have a look at something down below. Blood alcohol concentration. Okay, again, numerical representations. We're collecting data here, and maybe we'll graph it. So now we're saying here that the US Congress just moved to reduce highway funding to states that did not implement a national standard of 0.08% blood alcohol. Okay, so what we have here is a few little questions down below. Now, the number of 12-ounce beers you drink in an hour, that is a variable. Are you having no beers, 1 beer, 2 beers, 3 beers over that period of time? It varies, okay? So the number of beers is a variable. Now we can represent saying this by the letter N, okay? So they've got N here. Let's get a pen up. So right here, okay? We're saying the letter N. Okay, now number of beers is N. Can we seriously, in question 1, replace N with a negative value such as -2? Can you drink -2 beers? No. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of doesn't make sense. All right. Again, you would kind of talk your way through that. Can N be reasonably replaced by 0? No beers. Well, of course, yeah, you can drink no beers. Okay. Now over the page, so look at another one. So what is the possible collection of replacement values for N? In other words, you think to yourself, well, how many beers can I drink in an hour? Then we would say that N would go from 0. Okay, 1, 2, 3 in an hour, 4 in an hour, 5 in an hour, 6. All these are possible replacements for N in, say, maybe an equation. I don't really think you'd put 200. Okay, you're not going to drink 200 beers in 1 hour, never mind one night. Okay, so maybe this might be a good range of values to replace N with. Okay, makes sense. Now, as in concentration of alcohol in the blood, so remember, we're talking about just the number of beers. Now that's the important thing, because that's what that literally is the input variable, okay? That's the important thing. The blood alcohol depends on the number of beers. So number of beers is the important thing. What you get out of that is the blood alcohol level, which of course goes up the more beers you drink. So blood alcohol is dependent on the number of beers, okay? So, alcohol in the blood. Can we reasonably replace this with 0? You've got no alcohol in your blood. Well, that makes sense. You haven't had any beers. How about 100? Wait a minute. 100% alcohol in... No, I mean, you've either got blood. You've got blood there somewhere. You can't have pure alcohol going through your veins, okay? So that doesn't make sense. You can't have 100%, okay, blood alcohol, okay? And that's why we normally see figures like this 0.08. as the legal limit right now. Okay, so if you'd have was 0.1, okay, you'd be slightly over the limit there. Okay, so I guess the collection of reasonable replacement values down below here is okay. Again, I won't have any negative values. I could have no alcohol in my blood. I suppose I could have 0.01. I could have 0.02, and anything in between. I'm just kind of writing these as kind of nice numbers. 0.03, okay? And you could go on to, I mean, obviously 0.08 is the limit, But I don't know. I don't know what the most alcohol person's ever been. Is it 0.2? Okay, percent. I don't know how many beers you need to drink to get that much. Okay, so that might be too high. I don't know. You'd have to have a look at some figures. That might be a lot of alcohol in your system, and you're way over the limit. Okay, so it's looking at reasonable replacement values for B. Okay, but remember that B, the alcohol, is only dependent on the number of beers you drink. Okay, so this up here, this is the important numbers. Okay, all this down here is just the result of you drinking those beers. Now, for those who know this, okay, so this is the input variable. Okay, so this is the input. Quite literally, what you're putting inside you, you're putting beers inside you. Okay, and what you get out of it, we call the output. Okay, so this is just the result of you drinking those beers. Now, for those who probably know something about graphing, normally we call this the X. Okay, and this down here the Y. So whatever you put in for X, you get an answer out of Y. Okay, input and output. And for those who know graphing, X axis and Y axis, we'll come to that later. Okay, now what I've got down below here is let's suppose we actually write this as a table. Okay, and here it is. So let's have a quick look here. Right, we have number of beers in an hour. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, that's quite a lot. Okay, the blood alcohol concentration. So if you drink just one beer over the hour, that's your blood alcohol percentage. Okay, not a lot. 2. Now, can you see? Remember 0.08. So I'm looking at here. By the time you get to 5 beers in 1 hour, you're just about over the limit there. Okay. Now, actually, I think this is for a 200-pound person. Okay, so it goes on body weight. If you weigh more, you can drink a little bit more. Okay, if you weigh less, you tend to be able to drink less. Okay, because the blood alcohol will be higher in a lighter person than a heavier person. So we're looking at now 5 beers. So can you see again? The important thing is 5 is the input. That's what I've drunk. 0.087 is the result of that. That's the output. That's the answer. Okay, based on the fact that I've put 5 beers inside me. All right. So again, the number of beers. I can write it over here again. This is like saying this is the X value, and this is like saying this is the Y value. Okay. Input and output. Now, if we have a look at some questions here, why is the reasonable designate the number of beers consumed in an hour as the input and the blood alcohol? Well, I've kind of talked about that. Okay, so definitely the number of beers is the important thing. All right, alcohol depends on that number of beers. Okay, the amount of alcohol in your blood is just dependent, the answer to how many beers you've drunk. Okay, and then after this, it's just you reading from a table. So 200-pound person says down here. Consume 4 beers in 1 hour. What's the blood alcohol? So 4 beers in 1 hour. You'd look here and you'd look at that. Okay, you are under the limit. Okay, for a 200-pound person. That's just reading from a table. Now, if you had to graph this, and let's look at the next page. Here it is. Okay, so the blood alcohol level. Remember, if I go back to the table, I think 1 beer. Okay, give me a blood alcohol of 0.018. 2 beers, etc. 3 beers gave me that. They haven't written every single one. 5 beers, remember, just over the limit. So again, I'm kind of plotting these points. There's 5 beers. Okay, and there across here. If I read across here, it's me plotting it as just over 0.8. Okay, so just that, just over 0.8. Okay, so not very straight line. But again, remember this. Okay, if you do know this, this is the x-axis. This is the y-axis. All right, that's how we normally call it. Again, so again, the important thing is the x-axis. Look at it. That's the important thing. That's the number of beers. That's the important input. The y-axis, the blood alcohol, is just the result of those beers. Okay, so think x and y-axis. Okay, x is the important one. That's the input. Y is just the result, like the answer to how many beers you put in you. Okay, and this could be anything. The x-axis could be time. Okay, if I do this down here, get a pen going, I could write time as an x-axis. Okay. So think about a good one is the value of your car over time. So I could put dollars here, okay, not blood alcohol, and I could put the number of years here. Now, if you think about it, your car decreases in value. So again, with this one, blood alcohol concentration is going up, 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 up. The more beers you drink, the value of your car is going down, 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 down the more years go by. Okay, so that's more to do with slopes, which we'll deal with later. So you can have these graphs going one of two directions, either up or down, depending on the situation. Okay, but that is you just creating a graph from these values here, and we'll do a lot of that later.